Welcome back, Scruff-tards, to the War Zone. I'm Scruffy, and this is Scruffy Tales. And this will be a bit of a doom and gloom video because I will explore how Toretsk will fall into the hands of the Russians. But don't worry, Ukraine can still prevent it from happening. So where can we find Toretsk? Well, we have Toretsk here, right on the front line, denying Russia any chance to advance out of Horlivka. And it's, for reference, we have Bakhmut up here, Chasiv Yar, Avdiivka, and Ocheretyn. And this is where Russia, as of late, have made this massive breach and is now pushing north and northwest. And it appears as if Russia has abandoned their attempts of going down south. They bypassed Berdichi, took that town. I believe they even pushed into Semenivka. But ever since that happened, this section of the front line has held for the Ukrainians. The Russians are not pushing any further. They are, however, pushing north out of Keramik into Arkhangelsk, and they are leaving Ocheretyn, pushing northwest towards Novo-Alexandrivka. So the Russians are quite clearly focusing on going north and northwest, and as of now, ignoring bypassing Ukrainian defenses over here in this part of the battlefield. So where are they going? Well, here we have an ISW map. Oh, this is the deep state map, by the way. And here we have Arkhangelsk, and that's right here, as you can see, on the edge of Russian control, or the territory that Russia controls. Same goes here. What the Russians want to do, they want to grab Arkhangelsk and then get into the valley system here. You can see here you have the villages and towns and roads and what have you. They're probably going to try and get up on the high ground as well. But they want the roads and they want the towns, and they want to push all the way up north to Oleksandro Kalinove, way up here. And Oleksandro Kalinove, that's up here, right? And we have Arkhangelsk down here, and oh, I forgot to put the measurements in. Maybe that's, I believe this is 10 kilometers, so this could be 15 maybe. It's not that far, although as we've seen in this war, progress is slow and resistance, be it Ukrainians or Russians, is stiff. But the Russians, they want to push up along the valley here, in order to reach these towns in the end. And I also suspect that they want to try and push along here to reach this intersection here, as you can see, that diamond shape, because this road here, that's the, like we talked about in the previous video, the main supply route leading from secure supply hubs to Konstantinivka and then into Chasiv Yar, that is the front line where Ukraine is holding a couple of bottlenecks to prevent the Russians from advancing. So what the Russians, they want to do, is my guess, they want to push over here, cut supplies here, forcing Ukraine to move out on smaller muddy roads that will slow down logistics. And they also want to keep pushing north along these valleys, potentially even here as well as here, to reach this part of the battlefield eventually. And why is that? Well, everyone is saying that Konstantinivka is the next target if Russia grabs Chasiv Yar. I'm not so sure, because assaulting Konstantinivka, that will demand a lot of resources. So I'm thinking that Russia is probably, instead of Konstantinivka, they're probably after Inavopilia and Pleshivka. And I think they will be trying to come up this way towards Katerinivka. And if they grab Chasiv Yar, I'm thinking they will swing south to Ivanopilia and grab these towns here in order for these forces to link up. Because if they do that, they have encircled Toretsk, and that will force Ukraine to make a decision. If Russia is close to sealing this encirclement, will Ukraine stay and fight, or will they withdraw and leave this entire region and allow Russia to just move in and grab a huge chunk of land in so doing? And as you can see here, we have highlighted with the dotted yellow lines the supply lines leading into Toretsk, where the Ukrainians are holding the Russians at bay. So if Russia can push in from Chasiv Yar and cut, oh, I forgot to mark this one up, these two, and grab Ivanopilia, then Ukraine can't send in any reinforcements or supplies from the city. They have to go out into countryside and rely on the highway, and that is why they need to push up these valleys, like I said before, and grab Oleksandro Kalinove, because then they cut this supply line as well. And then Toretsk is on its own. And that is when it becomes dangerous if Russia increases pressure outside the city here and manages to move in close and threatens to encircle the entire area, right? So I don't think Russia will launch an all-out assault against this city up here when all they need to do is attempt to grab these smaller towns in order to effectively conquer this city without much effort. Or at least not as much effort as trying to take this city. And even if they take that city, that still means that this city is still in Ukrainian hands, if you get my point. So, in the long run, in order to grab Toretsk, Russia will not fight over Toretsk itself. They will fight over these four towns: Ivanopilia, Pleshivka, Klebanbyk, and Katronivka, because this is where they can threaten to cut off Toretsk. Or essentially, if you look at the road network, if Russia grabs Oleksandr Klinove as well as Ivanopilia, then Toretsk is essentially surrounded, because then they have no big roads to leave the area at all. So I may have to correct myself and point out that Oleksandr Kalinove is where they will cut off Toretsk. Ivanopilia is where they will cut off Toretsk, and by so doing, more or less completing the encirclement. So why don't I agree with everyone else on YouTube thinking they know what they're talking about when they're saying, oh, they will take Chasiv Yar and then they're gonna be rushing towards Konstantinivka. Well, grabbing this city, just like Bakhmut, will demand thousands of troops and an insane amount of artillery shells, not to mention hundreds of airstrikes, and Russia will lose hundreds, more than likely thousands of vehicles trying to storm the city itself. And why? Why? What will they gain from doing that? It won't collapse the front line. It won't threaten Toretsk. It won't do much at all, to be honest, compared to if they decide to move down south instead and start threatening this area. And like I said, threaten to cut off Toretsk from all supplies and reinforcements. And I highlight here, this is the string of towns and cities that has become a massive defensive wall for Ukraine that links up here with the Oskil River. So this is a huge defensive line. And it ends basically with Toretsk. So this is more or less Ukraine's version of the Surovikin line or the Maginot line, except Ukraine didn't really have to build it. It was already there when the war started. But this powerful and very respectable defensive line has a weak point, and that is, like I said, right here, where you have just two small villages, two small towns, compared to the string of settlements and urban environments you have up here. And compared to attacking Konstantinivka with attacking this area here, this gap, here Russia only needs a fraction of troops in order to succeed in breaking through compared to attacking the city head-on. Artillery will be much more effective. Here Ukraine can hide in every building and essentially be safe from artillery. Here, not so much, much more open ground, smaller buildings, artillery will be much more effective against any Ukrainian positions. Same with airstrikes, and Russian vehicles will not have to assault high-rise buildings and other structures that essentially are bunkers, massive bunker complexes and bunker systems. Also, if and this is the if Russia can come up from the south, then you have support from friendlies that will be able to outflank enemy positions in this area. You can buy outflanking and force them to relocate, as they don't want to get shot from multiple angles, which will make it easier to move in and secure ground. And like I said, if they push in here and succeed, they can cut off Toretsk and then potentially force Ukraine to abandon this area altogether before they are cut off. So say that Russia reaches this part here where they will cut supplies and they begin to move in here. Will Ukraine hold on to this city and the surrounding towns, knowing that Russia is so close to sealing the gap? Or will they just say, it's not worth it, it's better if we defend Konstantinivka instead, and then Ukraine abandons this entire region, right? Why should Russia attack Konstantinivka head on when all they have to do is attack 3 or 4 smaller settlements here where they can bring all their firepower to bear much more efficiently, and which, if they succeed, will give them a huge fortress that is a major obstacle on the front line. So, there we go. Right, so what can Russia do except just grabbing this territory here if Ukraine abandons Toretsk? Well, if this becomes Russian-controlled territory, then Russia has succeeded in the most basic of maneuvers in how to handle a formidable defensive line. Sorry, the English didn't really connect as I wanted to in my brain. Right, so you have, like I've mentioned 100 times by now, the Maginot Line, World War II. What did Germany do? Did they go through it? No, that was suicide. They went around it and attacked through Belgium. Hell, you can say that the Ho Chi Minh Trail during the Vietnam War was kind of the same as well. You moved around enemy defenses, enemy locations, enemy positions, and crossed the border further south, bypassing where the enemy had set up their defenses, moved around it all. The Allies and the United States did the same in Iraq when they liberated Kuwait. They went around the heavily fortified defensive lines that the Iraqis had built and attacked through the desert from an angle that the Iraqis did not expect. And that is what the Russians can do with this pincer move. If they grab this territory here, where we have Toretsk, they can bypass this Ukrainian defensive line. So here we have the Oskil River. The river continues this way, but down here it connects with the string of cities and towns marked with black that continues this heavily fortified defensive line, which is, to be fair, much more impressive than the Surovikin line, because There's no way you're going to cross the river. There's no way you're going to fight your way through all of these urban areas. So Russia needs to do something clever, and that is moving around, basically. Time-tested strategy, tactic, how to defeat a defensive line. Just move around it, and if they do, I'm rambling, but if they manage to grab Toretsk, then they can outflank the defensive line. So instead of just attacking from this direction at Konstantinivka, they can attack from here, move in from the south, and they can begin moving up this way to cut the supply lines leading into the city itself, surrounding it and attacking it from multiple directions. So that is when I think they will begin the true attempt to grabbing Konstantinivka. They will still be attacking it head on, but not to conquer it as such, because they need to apply pressure to the city to deny Ukraine a chance to strike out and help the Ukrainian positions down here in Ivanopilia and Pleshivka. So Russia needs to apply pressure just to keep the Ukrainians in the city and deny them any chance to move out and push the Russians back. So they will still launch big attacks against the city, but not to push into the settlement to conquer it. I think that will come at a later date when Russia... Right, my headset shuts down every now and then. And I'm keeping that in, not going to edit it out because of old time's sake. Right, so, like I said, I think they will try and grab territory down here to give them multiple angles, kind of like they had at Avdiivka before they moved in with an attempt to grab that city. And I think this is kind of funny. Take a look at this. This is me in a Discord well over a year ago, pointing out where Avdiivka is. But the main push is going northwest. I'm still thinking Toretsk is the new objective. So Russia was beginning to advance in this area here, and they were obviously pushing in and trying to grab Bakhmut at the time. And I thought, and they were also pushing in here south of Bakhmut. So I figured, you know, this looks like a classic attempt to create an encirclement. And that is what we're seeing now. Over a year later, Russia more than likely trying to finish what they started well over a year ago. So this is what I'm thinking. Looking back at what has happened, Russia needed to grab Bakhmut and Avdiivka in order to push on in an attempt to surround Toretsk and grab this territory here in order to be able to outflank the string of cities and towns we have here. So it has taken Russia well over a year to get things rolling, get things moving. So yeah, this is a slow-moving war. Holy hell. But I think we are currently seeing what they have been planning all along. So I think the plan has been, from the very beginning, to push in through Bakhmut and Chasiv Yar and Avdiivka and Okhtyrtyn in order to be able to link up and surround Toretsk and potentially even move up here to cut the supplies to Konstantinivka and the front line up here at Chasiv Yar and Bakhmut. The problem was that they got stuck on Bakhmut and they couldn't, as you can see here, they couldn't push in to Avdiivka as they wanted. So they essentially got stuck on these two cities, which denied them any good chances of pushing on to complete the encirclement. So what did they do? Well, then they instead focused heavily on grabbing one city. And once they had managed to grab Bakhmut, then I figured the plan was to focus on Avdiivka, but then the Ukrainian counteroffensive came in the way, and the Russians had to adapt to Ukraine being on the heavy offensive, and they figured, well, they're attacking in the south, why don't we try and grab territory up north at Crimea and Kupiansk, which failed, thankfully. But once the Ukrainian offensive ended and the Russian attempts to outflanking up at Crimea and Svatove and Kupiansk didn't bear fruit, Russia once again focused on this section of the front line, and instead of putting all their eggs into the basket up here, they now focused on Avdiivka and pushed in hard and managed to grab it. So now they managed to grab Avdiivka, they had Bakhmut, and now it was time to push on again. They pushed at Chasiv Yar, they pushed at Ocheretune, and then Ukraine's line, the Ukrainian lines faltered at Ocheretune, and the Russians capitalized, moved everything they have into this area and pushed in. And now that they have Ocheretune, we are hearing news that they are again increasing efforts in grabbing Chasiv Yar. So now they have Ocheretune, it's time to focus up here and make sure they have Chasiv Yar. And then they are in a good position to push in to complete the entire operation, which I believe is meant to surround Toretsk and force Ukraine to abandon this entire area and just fall back with a tactical or strategic withdrawal. So I'm thinking that we are finally seeing the Russian strategy play out. It just took them a year. They had to adjust a bit when Ukraine went on the offensive, but now they had Bakhmut. They could now focus on grabbing Avdiivka. They kept going. They grabbed Ocheretune, and they can now redirect their focus to Chasiv Yar and step by step push forward until I'm thinking, yeah, they are going for Toretsk. So what is Toretsk then? Well, this is the city, a 3D rendition of it. Well, it's a city surrounded by hills and forests, and by now more than likely also extensive defensive works. And it makes sense that Russia tries to avoid attacking it head on, doesn't it? I mean, you have, look at this, all these hills, forests, look at this, forest, you have high-rise buildings, and it's just, I mean, you couldn't ask for a better position to defend. This is a fortress that Russia very intentionally have avoided attacking head on. You have high ground that is easily defended. You have urban areas easily defended, forests that are easily defended. You even have valleys and stuff like this. It's just, and they more than likely have bunkers, trench works, minefields, and what have you all over the place. So this city is a bastion. I don't think Russia can take this city in an all-out assault, and they are trying to surround it for a reason, to force Ukraine to abandon this incredibly defensible position. Because if they're cut off, it doesn't matter how good the defenses are, they will eventually run out of food, water, and ammunition. But it's not all doom and gloom, even if it is a lot of doom and gloom. Because now with the US aid coming in, with the UK aid coming in, Ukraine will receive artillery shells once more. And hopefully the Czech initiative in procuring artillery shells for Ukraine will keep rolling, and we'll see those shells arrive soon, hopefully soon enough. And if that happens, then this push here will probably come to a stop. Ukraine will more than likely focus a lot of artillery on this area, forcing Russia to dig in and find cover and deny Russia any chance to push on, especially if they have, what is it, 20, 30,000 people here, according to rumors. That's a lot of people in a small area that will be easily hit by a lot of artillery. So if Ukraine just gets the artillery shells, never mind the vehicles or whatever else, they just need the artillery shells, then they can put a stop to this. And even more so up here at outside of Chasiv Yar. Here, I'm sure you all know by now that the canal goes underground at 2 locations. And this is where Russia has decided to try and get across and cross the channel, the canal. And this is obviously a bottleneck unlike anything else. And all Ukraine needs to do is aim every artillery piece they have in the area at this section here, and Russia can get across. So if Ukraine gets artillery shells, then Russia... Right, it shuts down. So yeah, if Ukraine gets all the artillery shells that they need, they will effectively be able to prevent Russia from crossing here and also further north. So it all comes down to if Ukraine can get artillery shells quickly enough. If Russia picks up speed and just YOLOs it, they can get across. Here they can begin pushing along the valleys, and eventually Ukraine will be able to put a stop to Russian expansion. But this is where Russia needs to hurry up. If they get across here and secures the crossing here, then they can begin planning for further offensives come the summer. If Ukraine can prevent Russia from getting across here, then Russia will not be able to get to Chasiv Yar this year, would be my guess. So doom and gloom, but there's hope. Artillery shells are coming, and they're coming, you know, a fuck ton of them. And yeah, when that happens, Ukraine will be able to restore the stalemate. Alrighty then, that's all I have for you in this video. Yeah, doom and gloom. But I mean, this won't happen overnight. This will take weeks, potentially months. And before Russia even gets anywhere near getting this far, Ukraine will more than likely have access to all the artillery shells they need and put a stop to this nonsense and force Russia to dig in instead of advancing. So yeah, not much else to add. So as always, go på marsch, Ukraine, and god damn it, give them hell.